Welcome back tonight. Thousands of legacy Twitter checkmarks remain on the site despite an announced purge of all the accounts not enrolled in Twitter Blue. That is all but one.
And yesterday, Twitter yanked the verified status from the New York Times, widely recognized as the newspaper of record in the United States. The company publicly stated it would not pay a monthly subscription service to maintain its checkmark. In addition, Twitter CEO Elon Musk called the Times coverage, quote, propaganda.
Well, here to help us unpack all the Twitter chaos and understand how it's going to impact the sharing of misinformation on the platform is Jennifer Dukarski, an attorney with Butzel Law Firm. So thank you so much for being here. You specialize in the First Amendment and digital media, so help us understand what is going on.
I wish there were an easy answer to the question, but really it seems that even though Elon and Twitter in general had said we're going to start de-checking people who had that blue check who didn't want to pay, they did indeed sort of target one specific person, but for the fact that immediately Elon texted, as you mentioned, that it was propaganda, you would expect a lot more people to fall off those rolls, but he didn't. They haven't yet. So the question is, even some of the other New York Times accounts are still verified.
So is it like a nitpicking thing, or?
It appears to be, and if not for the comments that Elon made, I would think maybe it's more subjective, maybe it's more just a matter of a rollout. But really, it does call the question as to what order he's going in and why.
There's so many organizations from
the.
No, it's okay. No, there's so many organizations from even the White House said they were not going to pay for the blue check mark or any of this. So all these companies, including media companies, and people follow, and what is this going to mean for them, and to understand what is real, what is fake, who's legitimate, and who's not?
Well, let's assume that the angels of his better nature get to the best of him, and he does take anyone who says I'm not paying and removes them from the rolls of the verified account. Then you're in a situation where you truly don't know who is verified, who isn't, and you have to say, is this a real news source? Is this a real good source of information? When you have a pay-to-play system where you can buy your check mark and put out any message, any content, that verification symbol starts to lose its credibility, or at least lose the meaning of the term verified.
Yeah, it sounds like you wouldn't even really need it anymore because anybody can put in a credit card and get a check mark.
Absolutely, and what that does is it puts the onus on the consumer of that social media. Anyone on Twitter who really wants to know whether that's factually accurate or from a source like the New York Times or from someplace else has to do a double check. They have to take a look at that information and really do an inspection. Is it a valid source? Where does the information come from? They need to verify and cross-check it on their own.
There's been so much made over the last few years about misinformation online and the algorithm basically feeding you what you're looking at. And so there's this divide of what's true and what's not true already. How much is that going to hurt this going forward if Twitter and Elon Musk follow through with what they said they're going to do?
Yeah.
It's just going to make it far more complicated because both disinformation and misinformation are on the rise. Misinformation can be incidental. It's wrong information, but not promoted for a particular reason. Disinformation is that promoted for a reason of deception. So that's going to continue to rise, and it really means that the consumer is going to have to look at who they follow, what sources they're receiving, because again, the algorithms may send you content your direction that you don't know is verified.
And then when you look and going forward with this, how do you think this plays out? Do you think this could be a situation where Elon Musk and Twitter are going for a money grab, assuming large media corporations like CBS are going to say, okay, we're just going to pay for it? But it seems like it's going the other way with a lot of these companies, from the New York Times to, like I said, the White House, saying no.
Well, Elon has a lot of ground to make up. When he originally purchased Twitter, the valuation of Twitter is now roughly half of what it was. So there's a big ground to make up, from a standpoint of finances. So there's got to be some end game. There has to be some idea of what he's hoping to promote in order to truly get back to the monetization Twitter used to be. But really, at this point in time, it doesn't seem like the true driver is actual factual dissemination. It's more aggregation. It's creating more content without letting you know what that content may be. Now, that's perfectly legal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. We're still protected if misinformation or disinformation is out there to try to follow the terms of use and have content removed where it's untrue, or to file a defamation suit in the case that somebody does defame you. The content provider is still on the hook. But at the same time, the platform is protected as it moves to that model.
But what about for robotics and AI? That can be a lot more difficult to figure out.
It is very difficult. It's hard to distinguish something that's generated by a chatbot. And even during the 2016 election, there were over 55,000 chatbots found just tweeting and putting out content on different platforms about the election.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing challenge that there are certain people who are working on that to try to decode what might be algorithmic. But again, that takes research, money, and a platform that wants to employ that to try to get through and get down to their true followers.
That part wants to use that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I wanted to ask you, could Twitter be liable in the instance there's a parody account that puts something out that is completely false? Could this lead to Twitter being essentially liable in court for something like this that could be just catastrophic?
Well, that really turns on Section 230, and right now I think the one thing we can all agree with is nobody seems to like Section 230. But that's the beauty of Section 230. It would protect a platform from any of those comments, because ultimately it's about accountability, and that original user who tweets that should be held responsible and accountable. Now, as to Twitter itself, if it's doing deceptive practices in saying that it's going to police its content and it doesn't, there is room for action by regulatory bodies. But from a standpoint of a defamation claim, right now 230 as it stands would protect Twitter.
Wow. I have about 1,000 more questions, but I just heard we have to wrap. So Jennifer, thank you so much for being here with us.